Salam Radio wishes all of our community Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamu alaikum. You are tuning into Her Chronicles. In the studio, I'm joined by Dr. Shabina. For the next hour, we'll be discussing women's mental health during Ramadan. There are many challenges that women face during Ramadan, either mental well-being issues or maybe spiritual practices issues they face. But Dr. Shabina, how can fasting during Ramadan impact women's mental health, do you think?
So, first of all, Assalamu alaikum, Maleeha. Thank you very much for having me on this show. It's a delight to be on the other side, you know?
Yeah.
Rather than having to talk on that side forever. So it's nice to be in the hot seat once in a while. And I think people should be in the hot seat once in a while, you know, in their life. So I'm very glad that you've given me the opportunity, and you're doing some great work as well. It's a great show. So the question about how women's mental health can be impacted during the month of Ramadan in many ways. So it's important that you have a look at the influences around mental health for any individual during Ramadan. So if we talk about it from a general point of view, the factors that influence mental health in Ramadan, in particular for everybody, are that you are supposed to have good physical health to have good mental health. That's the first thing. The second thing is having adequate sleep as well, because we all know that when we have a lack of sleep, we can become quite sort of dysfunctional, a little bit irate. And the third thing is, I would say, your own positions and responsibility, the role that you play in the household. So generally, these are the three factors that can have an effect on those that are observing Ramadan during this month in terms of mental health. Coming to how women's mental health can be impacted during the month of Ramadan. Obviously, circumstances are individual to each woman, and that largely is based on who do they live with, do they have dependents, which obviously increases their responsibility of having to look after children and husband, which is a very common scenario. Do they also work, which is an added responsibility towards women. And also, in terms of those responsibilities that are unique to them that differ from men, are they having to wake up earlier than usual when we look at sleep to prepare the suhoor for the rest of the family? And are they going to, after they come back from work, do they also have to prepare meals for the iftar meals? So that can all have an added physical strain on women during Ramadan because of these unique roles. And as a result, how that can impact on their mental health is that they can end up becoming more tired, which can lower their thresholds of being patient. Because we all know when you're hungry, you can become hangry. And you can also, that lowers their threshold of being patient. Also, not to forget that Ramadan is a time where we tend to think of and remember our loved ones that have passed away. So women, by virtue of nature and what their general makeup is in the way of hormones, are more sensitive in terms of the gender. Okay, so women are much more sensitive, so they would have the potential to become more they would have more emotion during this month. And that could be related to loved ones who have passed away or any circumstances in the household, obviously fasting and added responsibilities. So those thresholds can be lowered. Depression can become a lot more apparent. Stress and anxiety can play a part in those emotions too. So these are some of the emotions that can affect women, particularly in Ramadan, and not to forget the physical things in terms of their menstrual cycle, which can have a hormonal effect on women and cause them in this month to have various, like I would say, emotion-related behaviors.
Yeah, wow, a lot of factors there, but they're very important. I specifically like the one when you talk about grief, because I definitely have experienced that this Ramadan, which I was not expecting to. I think I felt like a wave of different emotions, definitely a lot of sensitivity around thinking about a loved one who has passed away. And I don't really know how to deal with those feelings, I'll be honest with you, because I kind of just push them aside, and I don't really think much of it. I think, well, yeah, but you have to move on. But in a way, I feel like my mind is still trapped in a traumatic experience. How do you think that women can work on the grief aspect of it?
Okay, I think that's such a wonderful question. First of all, there is only a limit to how much a person can tolerate when they shoulder grief. We all know that. Grief has a process, yeah? For some people, it's very different in how long that process continues. So there are lots of people that would have grief. The grief process lasts for years. For others, the grief process lasts from weeks to months. And it's a well-known fact that time is a healer.
Yeah.
So whilst you're going through that process, and then you come across Ramadan in particular, how I often speak to my patients is that if you feel that this grief that you are shouldering isn't making you feel better, or like you very much say, the practical aspects would be that yes, people have to move on, but your mind doesn't really break out of that moving and going, allowing you to move forward in that moving on phase. If you feel that it's impacting on your health in such a way that over the last 2 weeks you see that you have no pleasure or interest in doing the things that you normally do, it probably would be a good idea to seek some medical advice. And in some cases, counseling can be very useful. But when we look at the month of Ramadan, it is also very important to put things into perspective. So if I give my own example, I have a very stressful schedule. I'm not only a GP, but I'm also in local government. And I have a huge responsibility to many thousands of people. I also am a mother and I'm a wife, so I have my responsibilities there. So coming into the month of Ramadan, there are a couple of things that I have done to help. I also have some relatives who are very, very unwell at this moment in time. So coming into the month of Ramadan, how I have looked at it is, I am so thankful that the month of Ramadan has arrived, because it is the month in which we will reap maximum rewards of any worship that we do or any ibadah that we do. And because of that, it gives me great peace in psychologically convincing myself that anything I do in this month will give me spiritual ease and peace. It will also reap the rewards for my loved ones who have passed away, which I feel very sensitive about, especially if I was in a position where I had lost a loved one and I'm still feeling the grief.
Yeah.
And thirdly, the other thing I've done is I have cut down on my social media use, because there are effective ways in which you can use social media, but the ways in which they add to my burden in terms of asking me to do things or asking for medical advice, I think that can, for my own sanity and for my own well-being and for me to function better after Ramadan and be a rejuvenated person, it is important to put some things to the side and keep them as a lesser priority. So I've made the announcement that I will not be responding to messages on Facebook for medical advice, because I need to concentrate on the self. And when you have a burdensome schedule and you have, for example, you're burdened with your emotions such as the loss of a loved one, my advice would be to anybody that's listening that you use this month for spiritual healing, because it is such a month full of barakah and such a month full of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings. So it's very important that we use this month to our benefit, and that we are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have been shown this month so that we can reap that healing, that spiritual healing. There is so much peace in waking up, doing your suhoor and spending those quiet few moments in Fajr Salah and connecting with your Lord. That itself is incredibly healing. I would advise anybody who is observing this month and is going into a month whereby they've lost someone or they have grief on their shoulders to benefit from the spiritual healing that this month offers as much as they possibly can. And if you feel that that's not enough because you're only human, then I feel that it would be important to reach out and gain some counselling. And there is a local Peterborough organisation known as the IAPT service that you can access, and the number is 0300 300 0055 if you feel that you need talking therapy and want to speak to someone.
I think when you're mentioning counselling, I think especially in our community, it's kind of looked down upon in some households. I know I was never really told about counselling or where to even go and gain support. So how would you advise a woman out there who is struggling with grief or any other mental health issue to, gain the courage or the confidence to actually seek support?
So the first thing, I think that's a really good question as well. And I'm really happy that you're giving me these challenging questions, because these are all questions that relate to real life scenarios and situations.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Mental health is a huge taboo within the Muslim community that we belong to. And it's important to keep on having conversations like this, and also possibly going into community centres and mosques to talk about the importance of good mental health, so that you can function well as a person in the different roles that we have in the family or in the job scenario or in public as well. So first of all, for somebody who hesitates or doesn't have the courage to go out and seek mental health advice, it's very important to develop something known as insight. And I often use this when I speak to my patients who have mental health issues. And that is, insight is the ability to recognize that you're actually feeling not in the right place. And anybody that picks up the phone to me as a GP, any of my patients, and says to me that I'm not feeling right, I haven't felt right over the last couple of weeks, my mental health has suffered, I thank them. And the reason why I thank them is I say, do you know, the fact that you have picked up the phone and found the courage to speak to me about how you're feeling, you should be congratulated for that, because that is your first step to recovery. So always think that if you find the courage to pick up the phone and speak to a GP or any of these talking therapies or for counselling, that is your first step to wanting to get better. And the other question I usually ask anyone, and I will ask your listeners here, is where do you want to see yourself? Do you want to see yourself better? Because if you want to see yourself better, you have to start from somewhere. And you have three choices. One choice is to completely ignore what's happening to you and stay the way you are. Another choice is you stand up and face it and address it and get the help that you need. And the third choice is deny altogether that you're feeling anything whatsoever and watch yourself potentially deteriorate. And I would choose the second choice each and every time. So most people that have mental health problems, if I were to ask them, where do you want to see yourself? Do you want to see yourself better? And 99% of the time, everybody wants to see themselves in a better place. So if that's the case, come on, let's try and fix this, Yeah. And if you're somebody that doesn't have the courage to pick up the phone and speak to somebody over counselling, there are many online resources that you can access for your mental health. So one example is cognitive behavioural therapy through an online resource called Mood Gym, which has been developed by the University of Adelaide. And what that does is it is online cognitive behavioural therapy. Excuse me. And all it does is it asks you to commit to the course, and it takes you through online therapy. So you can do it in the privacy and comfort of your own home, your room. Nobody has to know about it. And there are other resources available on a website called keepyourmind.com. So all you have to do is Google Keep Your Mind Peterborough, and there is a wealth of local support and resource for people who are in Cambridge or Peterborough.
It's great to hear there's more support systems in place, especially if people hesitate to pick up the phone. But I think in general, whenever I personally think about Ramadan approaching, I feel a bit stressed in a way that I feel like I'm not ready for it, because I still have intrusive thoughts. I'm still sinning, and I'm not allowing myself to really heal from hardships. And I always use Ramadan in a way to heal, but I don't know, I don't really feel it this year for some reason. And I don't know if it's because I'm putting pressure into it, or I'm using social media as a coping mechanism because I'm thinking, oh, well, there's people out there who I can relate to who also feel this way. Would you say social media is not the way to go about it?
I think that there should be a moderation in everything, Maleeha. It's important to regulate everything that you do in life. When you reach the age where you're working, it is important to take time out and give time to yourself. Because if you work yourself too much, then you will burn out. In the same way that a lot of people use social media as a coping mechanism, it is the virtual world. And what that does is social media, it's been documented that social media, people who use a lot of social media can become addicted to it.
Yeah.
And an addiction to anything is wrong. So it's important to have social media time out and a detox. And people use Ramadan as a wonderful example to come away from social media so that they can concentrate on the deen. And I find it really interesting, actually, that you have expressed that you didn't feel ready for it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I would flip it around and say, and you still feel sort of stress or get intrusive thoughts. And I still think that when I see young people who say that to me, I would say to them, forgive yourself a little bit. You're only young. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. The reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted you the blessing of seeing this month of Ramadan is because He wants you to fulfill the best of it and take advantage of that. So number one, forgive yourself a little bit. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Number two, it is really important to understand that in this month, the doors of Jannah are open and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves His creation 70 times more than their own mothers. He is the most merciful. He is there for you. He is ready for you. You just need to turn to Him. So that's what I say to you. It doesn't matter if you're not ready. Any time is okay. He is always ready. So forgive yourself a little bit. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Think that this month has been sent to me irrespective of whether I'm ready or not. And the intrusive thoughts that you are getting, completely understand. And what I feel needs to be done is you either then restrict your social media to doing something constructive on it. So one of the things that I've started, because I have a bit of an addiction to social media, I can't help it, but I've taken out one aspect for this month is I'm not going to respond to any Facebook messages.
Yeah.
And that's been good for me because it's lessened the burdens. I can focus a bit more on my family and their needs and on my prayers and on my worship. But the other thing I've done is there's a great page, it's affiliated with Salam Radio, Facebook page a group called Muslims of Peterborough. So every day I share Ramadan tips. So I share Ramadan health tips. And one of the tips that I shared last night was from a website that you go on the website and it has a list of emotions: sad, hopeful, excited, depressed, hopeless, tired. And if you click on any one of those emotions that you're feeling, it comes up with a dua that you can read. And it felt so therapeutic having that. And I'll forward that to you, actually.
Yeah, that
so you
sounds
can have
amazing.
A look at it. Yeah.
Was the feedback good on that?
Very good. So I've got broadcast lists. I sent it to people who are on my broadcast list. They came back with, this is so useful. And so many other people looked at it and said, this is great. And it's also a way of increasing your blessings during the month as well. So my advice to you in short is forgive yourself a little bit. You can't do it all. And actually use this month as a detox and moderate your use of social media.
Yes. I know one other big thing that I think is kind of affecting me mentally is sleep. And we were just mentioning this before. But how can the lack of sleep just as a whole decrease your mental health? So when people fall asleep, irrespective of Ramadan, we all have a need to switch off and rest our mind. Our body and mind,
the way of them regenerating throughout the night is to sleep. So all your major sort of chemical reactions take place when you're sleeping, like breaking down of cholesterol. So from a health point of view as well, it's very important. And it's good for obviously your eyesight and your brain functioning as well. When you have good sleep, the average amount of sleep that is recommended is 8 hours. So when you're not getting the right amount of sleep, also the average amount of sleep varies from person to person. Some people are okay on 6 hours, some on 8 hours. I even know people that say they haven't had enough sleep when they sleep for 8 hours. They would need 10 hours.
Yeah.
So that's good. However, what is really important is that when you don't have enough sleep, those physical reactions that I just told you about don't happen properly. So obviously you're weighed down with physical health burdens. You feel tired, muscle aches, lethargy, fatigued if you don't sleep. And when you are feeling fatigued, you lose the ability slowly to focus and concentrate and make sound decisions in life, wherever that might be. That might be as a result of your work or whether you work in an office setting or even when you're studying. A lot of young people right now, and because you're young, it's important to reference people within your generation, are giving exams. And for them, sleep is very important so that they can focus on what they're reading. So in order to catch up on your required amount of sleep, it's very important, especially at the weekend, for you to at least get 1 or 2 hours during the day after Zohar, so that you can catch up on the amount of sleep that you need for the deficiency at night. And nowadays we're lucky because the Tarawih finishes at, say, 9:30. So if you get to bed by 10 o'clock and you wake up by, 3:45, you've still got a good few hours sleep. And I tend to, on my working days, I don't sleep after suhoor. I just sort of, read the Quran or do something else. And I feel that works for me better because the sun rises in front of you. There's a great joy in seeing the sunrise as well, getting some fresh air as the weather warms up as well. And these are the factors I try to weed out the positive from every situation. So yeah, sleep does have an effect on you physically and mentally as well. And it's good to put a regimen in place, like, 2 hours during the day, on the weekend, especially when you can. Obviously, those children that go to school can't.
Yeah.
And try to get to sleep by maximum 10 o'clock so that you're awake by 4 o'clock for your suhoor. Well, how long does suhoor take? 15 minutes, probably?
Yeah, I'd say around that much time.
Yeah.
I think when I think about sleeping, I panic because I think, no, I'm not going to fall asleep. So then it's just like a mind game of, okay, my brain's not going to shut off now until suhoor, really.
Oh, so maybe you should there's a good mindfulness app called Smiling Mind. It's free of charge. And it asks you a series of about 60 questions to assess your personality type. And then it has sleep programs on it. So you can listen to that before you go to sleep and you'll drop off just like that.
Great tip. I definitely use that. But I also think the importance of family gatherings, just having your family around you to break your fasts and everything like that is very important, because I think that's what is a wholesome feeling for me, is having my family around. But as women, I feel like we do have pressures, especially in Ramadan, to, make a new dish every day, to, make, after you've eaten, the kitchen has to be cleaned, and then you have to go read your namazes, but then you also have to spend time with your family, and you also have your own life. On top of that, if you're working as well, we live in such a fast-paced life that, in Ramadan we're told to slow down, but sometimes it feels unrealistic that you can't really even slow down.
That's true. You can't. It's very difficult, I mean, it's all right for me to sit here with my little blazer on and everything and say to you that, yeah, it's great, you should be doing this. It really does wear you down. What I tend to do is I tell my children, each and every one of you is going to go to the sink and wash your own plate, because that's going to lessen the burden on me. Because then I can go and pray my salah as well at the same time. So as soon as they've all finished eating, I say, right, go straight to the sink and wash your own plate, because my dishwasher's broken as well. So that's another thing, which is really bad. Yeah. So they go and wash their own plate. That lessens the burden for me. And then I think it's important that whilst the family come together and eat at suhoor, if the family comes together and cleans up, that would be so much more better for all of you, because then it lessens the burden on one person. So for those of you listening out there, if you actually can get together and as a team clean up, so it lessens the burden of the women in your household, I personally vouch for you and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you the barakah of this month 10 times more. How does that sound?
That sounds amazing. Alhamdulillah. But inshallah, join us after the break, where we take a deeper dive into support systems you have in place, coping mechanisms, and also dietary considerations as well to make. But yes, inshallah, join us after the break.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
When you send money to your family for Ramadan, send it with Remitly. Because our great rates and low fees mean that more money makes it to your loved ones. Millions of people trust Remitly to send money to Pakistan, Bangladesh, and many more countries worldwide. Ramadan Kareem from Remitly, wishing you a peaceful time. Download the Remitly app. Remitly UK Limited is authorized and regulated by the FCA.
At K2 Care, we provide care of the highest quality, with respect for faith and culture. We support people to live full and happy lives and work to encourage independence while ensuring dignity and privacy. K2 Care's in-house best practice policies are regularly inspected by the Care Quality Commission for complete reassurance. For more information, visit K2 Care at 805 Lincoln Road or call 01 733 555261.
Are you a savvy shopper searching for the best food deals? Look no further. Adams Cash and Carry can help you save big. We're not just a food wholesaler for takeaways and restaurants. We also welcome household customers at our warehouse in Westwood, Peterborough. Visit our website and enjoy wholesale prices on everything from drinks to flour, rice to burgers, and much more. To shop, go online and collect in store. Visit adamscashandcarry.co.uk today to start your savings spree.
2020 World Buffet is inspired by the best foods from around the world. See our teppanyaki chefs grill your food to order, or choose delicious Indian, Italian, Chinese, Mexican dishes and British favourites, all halal. 2020 World Buffet offers you unlimited food at a set price. Open 7 days for lunch and dinner. Catering, wedding and party services available too. Call 01733 566 320 or visit 2020buffet.co.uk. 2020 World Buffet, 35 New Road, Peterborough, PE1 1FJ.
Where can you get high quality and low prices? Amar Food Store and Halal Meat in Lincoln Road, Triangle is the place to go. Pay us a visit and take advantage of our special offers and great range of products on groceries, vegetables, fruits and halal meat. Also send money to Pakistan absolutely free. We have all top brands at special offers, offer free customer parking and provide a free local delivery service. Amar Food Store and Halal Meat, 613B Lincoln Road, Peterborough. Call us on 01733 687 374. High in quality, low in prices.
Are you looking for a career where you can make a difference? At Cross Keys Homes, we work with our local communities to create opportunities that change lives. We're looking for enthusiastic, talented people to join our team, from apprenticeships to senior management positions. Cross Keys Homes can support your development while you enjoy great employee benefits. There are so many opportunities for you to shine. Apply to join the Cross Keys Homes team at crosskeyshomes.co.uk.
Salam Radio wishes all of our community Ramadan Mubarak.
Assalamu alaikum, you are tuning into Her Chronicles. So as before, we were just talking about the pressures of trying to fulfill, being a woman in a household in Ramadan. But Dr. Shabina, how would you advise women to kind of prioritize self-care in Ramadan? And what does self-care really mean?
Yeah, I see self-care as being incredibly holistic. So, sorry, I keep on having to clear my throat because of this, because of fasting. Well, self-care is very holistic. Whenever I talk about mental health, Maleeha, you would have seen from the beginning of the show, I talk about physical health as well.
Yeah.
So, feeling good about yourself physically will automatically make you feel good about yourself mentally. And we just talk about the basics physically. Again, adequate sleep. When you're not fasting, make sure you're having the right amount of water to keep yourself hydrated. Give yourself a nice shower. Make sure you dress up and dress freshly every day. Yeah, doesn't matter. You don't have to put any makeup on or anything, but make yourself wear clean clothes. Prepare for your prayers. Put some itar on. Basic things that make you feel fresh. Because if you're physically fresh, you will mentally be fresh. And that's the first thing that usually goes in people who are suffering from anxiety and depression, that they neglect the self. They neglect the physical self. So a lot of people who suffer from depression, not really constricted to Ramadan, but it can be seen in Ramadan, is that when people fast, they forego the need to, or when they're depressed, they forego the need to get up, brush their hair, change their clothes, have a shower. And that can make it, because they have that lack of motivation. Obviously, they're in a dark place, so they need help with that. They need help and support with their mental health. But that's one of the first things to go. However, it's important to motivate yourself to at least have a shower, put on a clean pair of clothes, and tie your hair back. 3 things I usually say to women. And when you look after the physical self, the mental self will follow. And then in Ramadan, I think it's really important to, in terms of self-care, to adhere to your prayers. Make sure you adhere to your prayers. Make sure you delegate tasks. So don't do everything yourself. Make sure you get your family involved. Assign them tasks to do for you. So somebody has to do the cleaning in the house. Somebody else has to help you vacuum and hoover. Somebody can help you clear up afterwards. Don't do it all by yourself, because that's not fair. And if you weren't doing it before and weren't delegating before, start delegating. And it doesn't matter if it's a boy or girl in the household. Everybody should help in this month. Make sure it's a concerted effort. And if you have boys in your house that don't usually help with housework, just say, it's only for this month, I need your help. Yeah? So it's important that you put some ground rules down, because if you have people to share your load with, then you can start thinking about yourself. Also, switch off. Come off social media. You don't have to be on it on social media. I often think that social media has become such a place that everybody has found a platform to share opinions. And some of those opinions aren't sometimes very nice. I mean, I'll give you an example one day. I came across a comment where people were asking that, choosing between whether to say Ramadan Mubarak or Ramadan Kareem. And a lady didn't know what was the right thing to do. And bless her, she wanted to ask, should I say Ramadan Mubarak and Ramadan Kareem? I've been told that I should not be saying Ramadan Kareem. And I looked at the chain of comments and I thought, what difference does it make? If your intention is behind to wish somebody a happy Ramadan, surely the recipient should be grateful that they have been wished. And that's where I think that we get so much complicated into the nitty-gritty of things that we often forget the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is how we deal with people during this month, how we speak to people during this month. It's important to note that in this month, it's often believed that the shaitan is locked up So all the bad and all the evil in this world is locked away. Likewise, we need to focus on the self in terms of self-care and concentrate on being good to other people, saying nice things, delivering good acts to other people, acts of charity, which is wonderful. So self-care entails the physical self and also the mental self as well, with all of those factors that I've mentioned.
Yeah. I think one thing that really helped me in terms of self-care when it comes to keeping on top of my salah was creating a dua book. So making it really nice and pretty with a bunch of different colours in a special notepad, and just writing down the du'as that mean a lot to me, du'as that I need to recite every single day because it helps my well-being. And I think what you said, just dressing up, and not like dressing up where, you're going out the house, but, for me, feeling good is, having a nice shower, taking my time in the morning. I like the mornings to have time for myself. Picking a nice abaya. It makes me feel like I've already accomplished something in a way, and I'm ready to start the day, and I already feel good about myself, that I'm not going to think in my head, oh, you don't look nice, don't bother, looking in the mirror or anything like that. So it really helps start the day off right, I think. But when it comes to Ramadan, I think, we crave a lot of foods, maybe not necessarily good foods that will help, but, foods that are going to nourish our bodies. What do you think is the right dietary aspects to include in your diet?
That's a really good question, Maleeha, and I'm so glad that you've said that to me. And I just want to say, before answering your question, that it's wonderful that you keep a beautiful dua book. It's wonderful that you do that because, again, it's a sense of self-accomplishment that you've taken care in concentrating and focusing on something that you really like. And you can look back at it in pride and say, you know what, that was something that I did, So I'm really happy that you've shared that. So in terms of the right dietary aspect, one of the things that people worry about in Ramadan, especially if you have an underlying medical condition, is eating the right things, especially if you're diabetic. So it's important, if you're diabetic, to consult with your doctor to see whether it's safe to fast. And if you're safe enough to fast, I always say high protein energy foods are the best type of foods to open your fast with. And at suhoor time, having those slow release energy foods to close your fast with. So if we're talking about iftar, come away from anything that can cause you bloating, discomfort abdominally, constipation. And, there's a big hype with fried foods that are high in salt, like samosas or pakoras or onion bhajis, as those people who are not Muslim listening. And those are highly fatty and high salt content foods. So they can make you feel more thirsty. They can give you constipation. They can make you feel lethargic if you have a high salt content as well, and give you a lot of discomfort. And obviously, if you have something that has high carbs in it, they're using up a lot of energy to break down, which can make you feel drowsy, have a lack of focus. So it's important to make sure that you open your fast. And that was one of my Ramadan tips that I shared earlier this week, with a clear soup that is high in protein, like chicken, vegetables, lentils. That's good. And they call that in the Arab word chorba. Yeah? And chorba, a lot of people use chorba to open their fast with because it's fluid, it's soupy, people have it and they feel comforted. And then it's important to have a main meal. When you have that main meal, again, it can be high protein based. So anything with lentils, anything with chicken. Yes, a little bit of healthy carbohydrates is good because you need the energy. And then always finish off with some fruit. So that's how I've advised people over the couple of the last Ramadans, whenever I've been doing shows on Salam Radio and also advising in the community. Suhoor time, always try something with high energy in it, slow release energy, things like oats sprinkled with honey, and using normal semi-skimmed milk. That's often good. And when you drink water, use 2 or 3 grains of Celtic salt or Himalayan salt or sea salt, because that will retain water and you won't flush it out through your kidneys or visit the toilet often. So it's very important to have that type of a diet. And time your glasses of water. So at iftar time, have 2 to 3 glasses of water. Make sure that it's some squash or it's got some what we call electrolytes in it. So a bit of salt as well in lemon. And then you can have 2 glasses just before Tarawih, 2 glasses just after Tarawih, and then you can have 1 to 2 glasses at suhoor time. And that's your 9 glasses of water.
That's very well planned out. I'll definitely be implementing that into my Ramadan routine, because I always try and drink a bunch of water, but I get bloated from that then, and I also end up just flushing it all out.
Yeah. So if you have it with 2 grains of sea salt, rock salt or Celtic salt, put it on your tongue and drink your water. That helps you retain the water.
Right. I will definitely note that down. But what resources or... I know we spoke about support networks. Is there any other women's mental health aids out there?
Yes, there's a lot for women's mental health. I spoke to you about Mood Gym. There is an online resource called Mood Juice, actually, and that's more from Newcastle side. That's online counselling that can talk to you about your mental health in Ramadan. There is a lot of mental health resources, again, on this website that I will forward you to, that you can hit the tabs that tell you the different emotions and what they are. There, from an online resource point of view, Keep Your Head, which gives a lot of women's mental health resources as well, local support services. There are apps that you can use. So Calm is a good app. Sleep is another good app. And Smiling Mind. I'm a big fan of Smiling Mind. That's a good app as well. Locally within Peterborough, especially for Muslim women, you have a lot of sisters that hold sort of well-being retreats as well. Not specifically during Ramadan, but throughout the year. And I know what was happening internationally in Gaza. One of the sisters, who was a psychologist, had held a retreat in Peterborough Ferry Meadows for women to come and, you know, offload and feel that there was a sense of sanctuary there. So that's very good for mental health too. So these are just a few of some of them that women can avail for their mental health, as well as your salah and as well as reading your Quran as well.
Yeah, I did hear about that retreat. It sounded like an amazing experience. So hopefully we have more of those.
Yes,
I think they're very beneficial for women to come together.
Yes.
And even maybe make a new friend as well.
Yes, it's so important. Friends are very important.
Yes, friends are very important. But sometimes I feel like if I do need support, I do turn to my friends more.
That's good.
I wouldn't say specifically I would go to a family member, only because I feel like with friends, they can be more open-minded and they know you in a different way. And they also might be going through the same thing as well if you're like similar ages.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, Maleeha, you say that, because I was at Thomas Deacon Academy last week on International Women's Day, giving a talk to all these wonderful young women. And honestly, they were such wonderful young women. It's unbelievable. And I said to them that all you need is a little group of you of probably 3 or 4 friends who are really close, who can trust each other, and that in your bad times you can all fall back on each other, and in your good times you build each other up, so you grow together. And I think that's important for any individual, not just women, but any individual, to have that little group of 1 or 2 people around them. That's your little circle, that little circle that you can bounce off and talk to, because loneliness as well is another factor, feeling isolated and not having anyone to talk to. But this is really important, to have good, trusted friends. So you're right, family's different, but having your own little friend circle is very important too.
It really is. But how would you advise people to maybe change their mindsets to see Ramadan in a more positive way in terms of spiritually connecting and also disconnecting from the bad habits.
So the whole ethos of Ramadan is to disconnect from these worldly pleasures that we have in life, isn't it? It is our very own religious detox that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. So it's there for us to avail. Whether we choose to avail it or not is within our control. But looking at the rapid, fast pace of life and how things are changing in today's great demands, I think, on everybody from a mental health perspective, what better way than to be in tune with your spiritual self, than to be in tune with Ramadan and look at the positives it has to offer. There are negatives in the fact that, yes, people stay hungry, they stay thirsty, they're likely to get dehydrated and tired. But if you focus on the positive, I truly believe that you can turn around your physical state of health if you concentrate on your psychological state of health and take out the positives of Ramadan.
Yeah, I spoke about this before on another radio show, but we were talking more about how to implement good habits and how to maintain them even after Ramadan, because I know for me, I can be feeling off a high of Ramadan, but then as soon as it goes, I feel like life's not really as special as it used to be, and then all these good habits that I did apply to my everyday life have slowly started to disappear, and it's going back to that feeling of feeling disappointed because I didn't make the most out of it then.
Well, I've got a scenario for you, Maleeha. You know, when we use Ramadan to better the self, psychologically, spiritually, as a human being, why do we have that? Ramadan is there for us to not only stay hungry and thirsty, but to also think about those who are less well off than ourselves, and to remember everything that they go through and to better ourselves as human beings. It's a foundation. It's a foundation to rejuvenate ourselves to become a better, newer person. And that should carry us throughout the year until the next Ramadan comes, where we seek further improvements. So in a way, I would look at it by saying that, why don't we focus, rather than thinking that now Ramadan is gone and bad habits are going to creep in, we think of it as a foundation. But you know what? I've become a new person in Ramadan, and this is the new me. And this is how I'm going to carry myself until the next Ramadan, where I can seek out further improvements of myself. And that's how I would see it.
That is a beautiful way of seeing it. Definitely going to take some of that insight. But yeah, I know for me, it's not just me who feels like this, but there's so many other women that I've spoken to who also feel that way, and also feel like they can't be their best self because of other life issues they have going on or other hardships they're going through. And maybe it's because of their fast-paced life, or maybe it's because of, you know, having family pressures as well, that they can't really focus on themselves because they're constantly worrying about other things and worrying about other people and not really spending time with Allah. So would you say you have to dedicate time and like plan out your day more?
It's never going to be perfect, especially for women who have very busy lives like I do. I salvage the opportunity in Ramadan to find any time, even if it's 10 minutes, to connect with Allah, because I know that this time won't come back. So what do? Something has to give. And in that something, like I said before, I've cut down on my social media use. It's not a priority. The world will not stop if I don't respond to messages on social media, because right now, Ramadan, me, the self, is more important than the messages that are expecting me to be responded to just for some, say, I don't know, advice. And people know how to get in touch with you. We are in the age of internet, digital media. People can email you. If there is an emergency, your friends and your loved ones have your contact details. Anything else is not important in this month. And this is a harsh reality for me to have had to contend with, because I never knew how to say no properly. So it's very important for those ladies who are listening that something has to give. And what is the thing that has to give that is of least priority? You give that up during this month to work on yourself, even if it means 10 minutes. And I always say to people, you have 10 minutes before you go to bed, don't you? And they say yes. And I say, well, use that 10 minutes. Use that 10 minutes to sit down in silent prayer, in contemplation. And here I'm going to give you something that will share with you that motivated me to be this way. I have a wonderful brother, colleague who works with me, who brought me a prayer mat from Umrah. And it is the same pattern and design of the carpet in Masjid al-Nabawi in Riyadul Jannah. And he gave it to me and he says, sister, I brought this for you. And just the want for me to go and sit on that prayer mat at Salah time motivates me to want to pray during this month. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him the ajr for this and also accept my prayers, because that has just been a trigger factor in me wanting to pray and devote my time to Allah that I now have this month, and it feels extra special. So find a point, find a trigger factor in your life. Do you have, like you've made a beautiful dua book, written duas in it. That's your focal point. That's your time. That's a way for you to work on the self. Likewise, the listeners, the ladies that have hectic lives, do they have 10 minutes in their life, in the evening perhaps, to sit down in silent contemplation and prayer? Is there a dua book that they could find somewhere that they could read? Maybe they could use the duas, the emotions that we've been talking about with the duas. And I wanted to give the name of the website, which is www.islamestic.com/I am feeling. And if you have a look at those du'as 10 minutes beforehand, you could recite some of those du'as according to the emotions and see how you feel.
MashaAllah, that's amazing about the prayer mat. You actually found your special factor that, you go to your prayer mat and you feel special.
Yeah.
And do you feel a sense of connection?
I definitely do. I feel that just the fact that, the same design, it's a small thing, that the same design is from the carpet of Riyadul Jannah. It doesn't mean that I'm sort of praying there, but it just makes me feel so much more wholesome that yes, I might never, where I went for Umrah, I had the opportunity to pray in Riyadul Jannah, but away from that, it makes me feel more connected. That, this reminds me of when I was there. And it helps me make those connections.
It's bringing back those amazing memories you had where you felt oneness with everything, every aspect of your life, really. And everything happens for a reason, I believe.
Everything happens for a reason, yes.
But would you say there are, let's say if your friend or someone was going through a hard time this Ramadan, what advice would you give to the other friends to support them and be there for them, but not feeling like you're bombarding them or making them feel like they need to talk to you? So
are we talking about myself, or are we talking about somebody that is in a sort of a deep dark place and needs support of their friends?
Someone else,
somebody else. So if I see somebody who is in a deep dark place and I see that those person have friends and I have the liberty to approach those friends, I would say that the best way to approach them is to send them a message and say, just to know I am here, you don't need to respond to this message. That takes the burden away automatically from somebody having to respond to them. Just to know I'm here for you and that I share everything that you're feeling right now, and I'm on the other end of a phone when you need me, and you don't need to respond to the message. That just takes away the burden of somebody, because sometimes you don't feel like talking to people. You'll see somebody send you a message and you'll think, I'm not really, I want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But it feels even more wholesome to know that there are people out there that can understand that you're going through a hard time and can leave it to you to get in touch, and that you have the confidence in knowing that, you know what, when I feel a bit better, my friends are still there, and then they're not compelling me or allowing the burden of me to respond. They don't judge me for not responding, basically. And that's what I would advise to those friends.
Are there any red flags, do you think, to notice when a friend's mental health is derailing?
There are lots of red flags. That's a really good question, Maleeha. So some of the red flags are if, yes, a person isn't communicating with you as much, if you notice that they're losing weight, they don't make eye contact, that when they speak to you, they're not speaking to you in full sentences, and that they have a monotonous tone to their voice. There are lots of different ways in which you can find out. Those are some of the red flags. And obviously, if they express to you that they don't feel like being here, which shows that they aren't gaining much out of life.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shabina, for joining me, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. And I really hope you can take away a tip, or maybe you feel a bit more relieved because you can relate to some of these topics we've been discussing. But Hadafis, and thank you.
Thank you, Maleeha.
Stay tuned to